Wholeness, welcome. This is Josh, Integrating Presence. Today, Luka Boenisch is with me. Luka, what's up?
Hi Josh, what's up? Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. This is a chance encounter I had. I was looking for domain names, and I just happened to type in Luka's domain name. Let's just say that, and yeah, without doing any kind of promotion right off the bat here. And I was kind of surprised, In the old text, it says there's like four things you should never neglect, and I forget what the fourth one is, but one's a small fire because it can grow into a huge fire. Another one's a small snake because it can be very poisonous, and the third is a young sage. So I honestly look at Luca as kind of a young sage, but I've studied Buddhism and practiced Buddhism, but I don't call myself a Buddhist. It's just like, what is this, and what's the best way to go about it? What the hell is this? What is reality? And so I'll just ask my standard question here, at the top, who's Luca and what kind of work does he do? And I like this because I told him before the show, I want to jump right in kind of the deep end here, starting with self.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, who's Luca? I guess I could say, yeah, I'm Luca. I like writing, painting, reading, traveling, being out in nature. But yeah, what is self? I guess, I guess the real answer to this is that if you think there is a self, who you think you are, is is some entity or something specific, then I would always invite you to look for that, right? Try to find it, try to pinpoint it, try to see it or find it in every experience where you assume it's there, so to speak.
Yeah,
And
and
then
I
maybe you'll discover something.
I love this call to inquiry because no one can tell us the answer to this, right? We have to
That's right.
see and know it. We have to discover this. We have to do the exploration for ourselves and wisdom, that we have to, I don't know, garner the wisdom for ourselves. And yeah, it's great, I yeah, so it pretty much said it all without saying too much. So let's just start though with some kind of standard stuff if you want. Like, how did you get into all
Yeah.
this? Tell people like what you write about. And I know um, it's something you just need to go and read his work really to really know because you cover so many things. And what I like about it is it's like down to earth, in a way. I mean, that's a kind of a cliche saying, but it's like really plain, everyday life, but the kind of the wisdom embedded in everyday life, like I wouldn't call it self help either because that's so cliche too. But it's like, how do we go about this? Where are we tripping ourselves up? And I don't know. The words kind of fail me here, which is interesting. Uh,
They
yeah,
often fail me too, man.
but but yeah, the writing is great. And so
Thank you.
you've talked about things from some self, right? I even reached out
Yeah.
to you about this notion of solipsism, and
Yeah.
you know, but one of the things I do want to, I think I pretty much align on everything you're saying from the nature of life, and suffering and things like this. You're fairly well versed in philosophical backgrounds and various spiritual traditions and things, from what I gather. And the one thing though that kind of sent me for a loop, and I would love if you would just talk about this a little bit, is it seems like you're into predeterminism though. So,
Oh,
is that is
uh,
that is that right?
um,
Or how would you put
no, I
that?
would. Well, I
No.
wouldn't say I'm into predeterminism. I would
Hmm.
say that I'm definitely not denying free will. I just don't think free will is something that we have. I think it's something that we are. It is an essence, right? So the thing that is predetermined is what appears to be, right? Like the you think you are is doesn't have free will because it's actually not there to have it, right? But when we But we can't, or at least I don't feel like we need to dismiss free will completely. Otherwise, we would just go to the other end of the spectrum. Like, say, predeterminism as the opposite to free will is true, which, is a fallacy. Um, so, yeah, I would say it's like, it's neither and, so to speak, right?
Yeah, it's a good point because with the problems like with predeterminism is it's just like, well, who did first off the big one, who determines it, right? Who is determining it? So
Right,
that's a
right.
whole line of inquiry. Then it can get into this notion of powerlessness in a sense, like, okay, if everything's predetermined, then it really doesn't matter what choices I make because they're all predetermined. Or I mean,
Yeah,
or if then do I even have choices? And yeah, I don't, and
yeah,
then
it
it
can
gets into a
paralyze
sense,
people, kind of.
yeah, it
Yeah,
can, or it can lead to like nihilism, like I don't give a shit. I can just
that's
go
right.
do whatever I want. There's no incentive to do anything worthwhile or anything like this. So, but then the free will, it's just like, well, we see that in our daily lives too. It's just like if we did have entirely free will, I could say, why can't I have the utmost level of consciousness all day long? Why can't I just say, I want this level of consciousness now? I want it like that, this now, free will. Why
That's right.
can't I control my body? Why can't I live forever because I choose? So yeah, there's problems with that too, you know?
That's right. Especially when it comes to our like most intimate experiences, thoughts or feelings. Like if you truly have free will, you should be able to stop them for a day or two, or like have them whenever you feel like it, right?
Yeah, and there's some incredibly advanced yogis that can get into like Nirodha Samappada here.
Oh,
But
that's
as
true.
far
That's true.
Right. So, but for the rest of us, it's I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's on your so besides this, because I think I have a little bit of a challenge penetrating into this. I wanted to ask you some things outside maybe your wheelhouse and see how you just your opinions on things like the big hot topic today. I think is AI. Like, where do you
Oh,
see, maybe throw you a curveball here, and do you have any views on this?
um, well, obviously, I'm not an expert on AI or anything like that, but I think there might be a fundamental misunderstanding in a sense that when we say AI can become conscious, because I think there is a misunderstanding of what consciousness is if we say AI can become conscious. And despite that, I do think there's wonderful benefits we can get from AI. We already have them wonderful benefits. I mean, everyone who's used ChatGPT knows there's like some fun stuff there. You can have some fun with it. Other than that, I really don't have an expectation where this will go. I mean, we're all familiar with, the horror scenarios, but I mean, it could go either way, I guess.
Yeah, that's my feelings on it too. So you mentioned consciousness. Let's get these big topics then. So what is
Yeah,
consciousness? What is
yeah,
awareness? How does it differ from like attention and mindfulness? I think this is people often, and then we'll jump back into self. Do you? Is there any? No, we already did that. I like just trying not to give a definition and pin it down. I like the
yeah.
self inquiry method. So let's just talk about the big one here: consciousness and awareness.
Right, right. Well, I mean, I feel like we can use consciousness awareness interchangeably. Some don't, some do. But if we want to really talk about what's our true nature, then you might call it awareness, you might call it consciousness, you can call it presence or everything or nothing or whatever other word gets your boat floating. Um, and attention and mindfulness. Well, I guess you could say that attention is simply what your focus is on the present moment, what your focus is on the moment. And mindfulness is, in a way, you're just being present with the present. You're just being present with your actual experience, with your immediate experience, instead of losing yourself in concepts about it, right? And I think that's also an important point is that if we want to find or recognize who we really are. All we need to do is we have to look right here, right now. I mean, the easiest, I mean, like the most basic pointer basically is, have you noticed that everything just kind of is? And we can easily over conceptualize everything, right? We can think that, like, oh, okay, I've heard about consciousness and awareness, and I want to get there. So I project it onto a timeline as a future experience. So I have all these expectations about it. So I think it's going to be an experience that's going to liberate me, or the experience is going to be, like the final great experience, and then I'll be satisfied. But then we've already overshot the goal.
Yeah. Then
Right?
there's also chasing after peak experiences, having these peak
Exactly.
experiences,
Exactly.
never being able to regain them or live up to them or surpass them. That's another
Yeah.
thing. So what do you think the point of all this is? Is there a point?
Well, I would say there is none, but I mean, I guess the point to what? The point to what? The point to life?
Yeah, I would say the point to this living, this notion
Yeah.
of, and then we might as well just get into the classic existential things,
I
The
mean,
one that
like,
really took me for a loop was when I heard someone ask the historical Buddha, after full awakening, will I exist? Won't I exist? Will I exist and not exist? Or will I exist? Or will I neither exist nor not exist? And he said, none of that fits the case. That doesn't apply.
yeah, right. Right, exactly, exactly. I mean, I think that's kind of the point, because you already have expectations about it. You're trying to project yourself into an experience, but it's not that. It's not a specific experience. You're not experiencing it, and yet the experiencing is it, right? Like the experience, the immediate non-conceptual experiencing that's happening in every moment. That's it. There's nothing more to look for. That's why all the sages said the seeker is the sought, right? But we usually think, oh, the seeker is the sought. Oh, I wonder what that is. I want to get there, and we're already on a timeline towards a conceptual experience. And regardless of what's the point, well, of course we can say there is no meaning to life outside the meaning we make, outside the meaning we create in the mind. But another classic answer might be, the meaning is just being alive and perhaps enjoying it even. Because what better way might you want to spend your time here in your life than enjoying it? And I think that's also the reason why most people get into this whole like spiritual awakening stuff, because they feel like it promises a life where they can finally relax and enjoy and stop chasing after things.
So are you advocating hedonism, Luca?
I would say controlled hedonism. No, I mean, like that's. I think there is. Everyone usually knows, like deep down, what's right for you. You know what's correct for you to do. Everyone knows, hey, it's not right for me to endlessly indulge in drugs and food and entertainment all day long and do nothing else, right?
You know what? That is a classic question, and I thought, early on, yeah, that seems obvious, but even from my own behavior in the past and some other people, I think some people have a better understanding of that than others. You know what I mean? And then some
That's right.
people
That's
love to
right.
test the limits. They love to push the limits on that, and for better, worse, or otherwise. And so, I mean, this gets in a thing of ethics. How to me, it's real simple, non-harming. Of course, there's maybe a lot of gray areas, but I do think a lot of us, we can start there, is we know when we're harmed and when we're not, right?
Yeah.
Then we apply that to others. So how do you feel about like an ethical framework, or just either based on that or anything else?
Well, I would almost say the same to what I said earlier. Like, I mean, of course, we could say there's psychopaths and sociopaths and all that kind of stuff, but I think, every most of it is the result of conditioning of growing up. But deep down, I already know like that it's right not to hurt others. I don't need like an I don't need to study ethics or what's right or what's wrong. I feel it. I know what's right or wrong before I think about it, before I conceptualize it.
Yeah, it's just you're right. So this comes up with this psychological gunk that gets layered on top that obscures this. So it seems a lot of the paths are discarding things that get in the way of this innate knowing, this innate brightness, this innate awareness, and there's confusion, and then there's trauma, and then we I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else, but sometimes we'll justify actions or come up with rationality of why the things we do are okay when maybe we know they're not, or we're unwilling to examine them further and contemplate the implications. And so, where am I going with this?
That's right.
Yeah, so that's I guess what I'm asking you, maybe do you have any um, advice, instructions? What do you think about discarding things, getting rid of things? So this might go into spiritual practices, like your work. To me, it exemplifies so brilliantly how natural and easy and commonplace, a lot of the things in the spiritual, for lack of a better word, are, and it reminds
That's
me of
right.
Ajahn Chah. I don't know if you're familiar with his teachings, but it was a common dirt farmer, and he just could connect with people. He kind of knew, like, he had skillful means. He just he could kind of really see into people's nature, but then connect with them on a very earthy, simple way. But it was very super profound. So, like, what do you, for people that just have tons and tons of gunk, or even, huge spiritual egos, or, like the spiritual ego I'm trying to integrate or do something with, and, just all the things that obscure and get in the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first I want to address what you just said earlier because I think it's a good point that spirituality is not is it's for everyone, right? What we're talking about here is for everyone. It's not for a few spiritual geniuses or the followers of a guru or a teaching. It's like the most pragmatic thing there is. It's just an immediate experience, so it's for everyone. And well, for everyone who has a lot of gunk, as you said, I would say a first important step is, or at least a helpful step is first to accept yourself as you are. I think so. We spend so much time and energy trying to constantly improve who we believe we are, and it doesn't get us anywhere. I know I've tried for a long time, and in the end, I felt more tense than I was before because I always felt like I'm chasing some idea of perfect human being, of perfection, of being a specific way. So that's like accept yourself, see that there's essentially nothing wrong with you, and then the next step is question your assumptions, question your beliefs, look into your conditioning. That's and that you can do that in any way you like. And I'm not saying it's just a mental exercise, as you said with meditation. It's like it can be a full body exercise, and usually it is. You feel when tensions leave the body. You feel when something's being released. And for that, self honesty is really important, as you said. Like when we talked about people justifying their behavior, a lot of it is because we see ourselves as these good people. We want to be good people. And then there's this cognitive or perhaps even spiritual dissonance is like, oh, I believe I'm a good person, but what I did is not good. So then I'm trying to like kind of catch this belief instead of really looking at it. Like, are you really a good person, or is it even necessary to see yourself as a good person? Right?
Yeah, it's a really good point. On the higher and higher levels, it's just it doesn't really apply. But on an everyday thing, even just this notion of good and bad can be problematic. I mean, I think it's helpful for some people, but that's why I like this notion of skillfulness, right? And wisdom.
Yeah,
So instead of putting this value judgment, oh, this person's good, this person's bad, which one person might think is good, another person, that's not too good, or, oh, you're a goody two shoes, all this type of stuff. So, but pretty much everybody can connect with, I think, degrees of skillfulness and wisdom,
yeah,
right? This is not to deny evil, because, this problem of evil, it's such a loaded word too. However, there are things in the world that are just maliciously harmful, But again, how much time and effort do we want to spend, really putting on our superhero cape and go fighting this, And then even if we look at all the ills in the world, is it really going to be helpful when some of these people I mentioned psychopaths are people find out about them and they're kind of the shenanigans they do, is it going to be helpful to be a vigilante or seek retribution? I don't think that's helpful either.
Yeah,
So like this is why it comes back down to skillfulness and wisdom and also the heart qualities, because with too much wisdom we get cold and like snake like. So this notion of these skillful heart qualities of compassion, kindness, rejoicing, and yeah um, equanimity, even there's only so much we can do. We can't make other people's choices for them and live their lives.
right.
This notion of I asked earlier about what's the point of all this, and I think I'm in line with the historical Buddhas on this one. It's just no suffering and the end of suffering, which equates on the positive side to contentment. Yeah, being content in life, because all the other stuff really doesn't mean shit.
Yeah,
If we feel like complete and utter ass all day long, or things are real bad, things are stressful, even unsatisfactoriness, it's just not as fulfilling and and all the other things that we might be interested in or worthwhile in life. If there's just too much stress there, then all that other stuff really doesn't even matter anyway.
that's right. But what I would say about earlier when you about good and evil, I think there is like I think it's a Zen saying. It's like there is no right, or there is no good and there is no bad, but good is good and bad is bad. Right?
Wow, yeah, that is,
the,
just let that sink in
and
for a little bit. Go ahead, yeah.
and what you said right now, well, about the contentment and happiness and yeah, suffering. I think what's important to see is also we always have these, and that's also the result of conditioning that we believe we need all of these things to be content and happy. Like I need this house and I need this partner and I need this car and I need all of these things. I need the success and everything to be happy and content. And the truth is you don't. And if you truly want to be happy, then you can make a choice. Do you want to be happy with this thing or do you just want to be happy? And if you're honest with yourself, you can be happy without it. But some part inside of you really wants to be happy with this thing. So in a way, there's like a choice there, right?
There totally is. And, I saw this early on when I was still working like in semi corporate, even though it was a really cool, lax, creative people, had a lot of fun and stuff. But I had no interest in, climbing the ladder and getting all this stuff that I saw other people just in a state of misery, basically yearning, taking their happiness like a bone, and throwing it into the future and chasing after it.
Yeah,
It's
that's a funny analogy.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
right.
what it is. Yeah, it's right here
Uh,
and right now, and the conditioning. Enough can't be said about that, because I think a lot of our behavior is from our upbringing and tons of conditioning. Yeah, causes and conditions for pretty much everything. Yeah.
that's right.
So what's on your radar now? Like, what are you looking at? What are you, well, yeah, what are you reading, or like what kind of, not, maybe not specifically, but like any areas of topics you have going on, anything that interests you? Um, and as far as your writing goes, how do you get inspiration? Is it things that happen in your everyday life? Do things just occur to you? Do you see things in the greater world that need addressing? And we can just talk about creativity in general if you'd like. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess when it comes to inspiration, it's a bit of everything you mentioned, right? Sometimes things just occur to me, I have an insight, and then I build on it. Sometimes I read something and I find it really interesting, so I chew on it and digest it, and then see maybe if there's another angle or maybe something I could contribute or something like that. Recently, or for a while, I've been mostly reading a lot of just literature. really into American literature. And I'm constantly surprised because often, it's the deepest insights you get from books, sometimes not from like spiritual literature, but just like novels and really well written stories. So I think there's a lot in there. And, if you had I don't know if you've noticed that, but the moment you became interested in all this awakening stuff, it feels almost like your whole environment, everything is trying to help you. You like hear a song and it's about this. You hear it everywhere. You read it everywhere. Everything's like a key, a hint, a pointer. And if you're open to that, then it's everywhere, right? And in terms of creativity, like like tongue firmly held in cheek, I would say for me, that's like, if there was a meaning in life, then it would be to be creative, create something. We're here and we can obviously do something. We can create something. So just create something. And it doesn't need to be writing or painting. It should be anything, right? You can be creative in all kinds of ways. And as far as I'm concerned or aware, I feel like everyone has a desire to create something, to be creative. And I wouldn't even say that sure, some people might be more in touch with their creative vein from the get-go, or they might be like in their childhoods, they might have been, the parents might have supported them in whatever they wanted to do. So they feel like they're more creative. But I think we're all creative. Like creative energy is not something it just flows. It's not something you have inherently more than any other person. It's more a kind of thing of tapping into it. And I found that if you actually just do something, I don't know, sometimes I just sit down and write randomly, like just stream of consciousness, or I paint something and I don't know what to do and I just go and go and go and something happens. And sometimes in the most ugly pieces of art, there is really a hidden gem, something that, like a unique style almost you can find.
Yeah,
And, yeah.
creativity is such an amazing thing. There was part of my practice where it just started rolling out, and I would just keep a sketch pad and just almost, it was almost not a compulsion, but it was just like overflowing, and I just wanted to do it. I think a lot of people might get turned off because they're trying to judge what they create up to something else. You could do
That's
it
right.
just
That's
for
right.
you as an outlet or an experiment and not have to show anyone whatsoever. Or even when I did show stuff later on to a few people, it's interesting. It's another creative process to talk about it and explain it, and if you reveal the intent behind it or process. So that's a whole nother thing of the creativity. And today, some of my creativity is just, this natural, old-fashioned malehood of problem solving, right? You can be creative in our problem solving. Now,
Yeah.
we can't solve a lot of problem solving. Actually, can kind of create problems, but in those times in our lives when it does make sense to solve problems, we can be creative even in that, with our speaking, our expression, our communication, even. So yeah, creativity doesn't have to be even limited to traditional means and modes, but it's such a beautiful expression, the emotional expression, and it's so healthy, I feel, to take some emotions that we have and express them, or integrate it with emotions, or use an emotional aspect behind creation. I think it's really healthy for a lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I also think, a lot of people that maybe feel like a lack of fulfillment, I would tell them create something and then see how you feel. And it's not even, and then you notice it's not even about sharing it with people specifically, but like the creative act is something, has a specific flavor and it is inherently fulfilling, just the creating. But I also agree that for example, I saw this a lot with painting, especially that there's kind of multiple stages to what creativity can be, and like the catharsis can unfold in every stage of the creation process. Like, for example, why are you creating? Like, if I'm painting something, why have I chosen what I paint? And then of course, it's in the process of creating. Often I realized how there's like stuff that's being released, like thoughts that just come up and go while I'm creating. And then of course when you're done with your creation, then you can look at it and then you can reflect on it and think, oh, okay. And then afterwards you might understand why you did what you did. what this was or the other thing was, why you did this painting in the first place. And then you can look back across your art and see that it all reflects kind of a specific state of your life or a state of being you were in. And yeah, I think it's really fun.
Yeah, that's beautiful to remember because there's sometimes we go into the creational process with a very specific intent, right? And then to bring that intent to light, but sometimes it's the other way around. You just start doing something and then it's almost like dream work and interpretation later. It's like, oh, I can see, this makes sense. This is why did I draw this? Or, oh, well, okay, this was going on in my life, or I can see how this matches up in either free associating, doing interpretation, or maybe it might spawn another idea, in another process. The other way around though, do you ever like destroy some of your creations, or like
Oh
what
yeah.
is the destruction process, or how is that, is it just as important as creativity, or how do you find this either rejection process or you know uh, another classic one is how do you know when you're done, right? How do you know
True,
when you're done with a project? But
true.
yes.
Well, in terms of destruction, I can say like I have overpainted so many canvases, for example, multiple times, and be like, oh, okay, now I no longer like this, and I kind of feel like this needs to be something new. Or it can also be exhilarating to destroy something, right? You create it. Like for example, you might be into poetry and you write a poem, and instead of sharing it with the world, you just rip it apart and you know gather all the pieces. That can be a really almost like an exercise in letting go, an exercise in non-attachment in a way. And yeah, the thing with when do you know when you're done? I think everyone who's creating art knows this feeling. But I think it varies. Sometimes I have a really clear sense of okay, I'm done now. Other times I just, I might let a piece sit for a while, and that's true for writing and for painting, for example, for me personally. And then after a while, I come back and do something more. Or a few weeks later, I come back and look at it and like, hey, it's been done all along. It's been done all along.
It really does depend, and what this speaks to me, it's this notion of a sense of kind of power, right? That just kind of, but also with the intuition, because there is no textbook for things like this, right?
It's
It's
true.
just kind of like this kind of self trust, self knowing decision making process in a way, right? In a way that's not just the standard old worldly way of making decisions and following things out,
Yeah,
and the power to create, the power to destroy or redo, right? And so yeah, it's and some of the most inspiring things in the world are things that people have created, right? Most meaningful things. Some people derive so much meaning and pleasure from creation too. Some people get in a lot of trouble. We either can't come up with the next creation, or feeling they need to get in an extreme state to be creative, things like this. So it is a really fascinating area of our being. Yeah.
yeah, that's true. That's true. And I think I like what you said earlier. There's no textbook for this because in a lot of ways you can almost like how did you say you can almost slow yourself down by reaching towards too many prescriptions. The mind is kind of like always reaching towards prescriptions, and it's true for creativity as it is true for like spiritual practices and methods. Because I mean, it's for some things, like how to turn on your computer. Well, of course, you can have a prescriptive advice. You just like press the button, right? But when it comes to things that are like multifaceted and complex, and they all depend on kind of your own individual context and experience and environment, there's no prescriptive advice you can take. And I think if you can really like hold off on always reaching towards a new prescription on how to and 5 steps and all that kind of stuff, then there is there is the possibility that something naturally emerges. You find your own way, which is kind of what most people want in a way, right?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I get reminded of this sometimes too when I fall too much into established spiritual teachings, right? And we just look at the historical Buddha. He had to leave all his teachers, ironically, because they weren't doing it for him.
That's
You
right.
know,
That's
so
right.
completely self-awakened, right? And yeah, we can use it as I think what prescriptions can sometimes do is they provide inspiration and motivation, perhaps in a certain way, but maybe the end result. But it's maybe it's part of our experimental process to try some of these. But
Sure.
like, do you really think somebody can give you the prescription for the next Mona Lisa, or a famous work? I mean, maybe you can get in the ballpark, but are we just copying, or like how? Yeah, it speaks to like originality too, I guess.
Yeah, and also,
When
all,
maybe it comes to
yeah.
expression, but yeah, I want to in the spiritual spirit also. Yeah,
No, I just wanted to say, and also, like most people who give you prescriptive advice, they give you the part and pieces they think were contributing the most. They think were the most important bits. So, for example, if you look at the historical Buddha, and you look at his life and you think, okay, he was an ascetic, he did this, he did that. So I'm just going to do all these things because I think that's what led him to his awakening. But I think the Buddha would have been the first one to tell you, hey, no, that's not it. You can't try to find a cause and effect relationship here, right? Like you can, or like I don't know, if someone for example creates a super successful business, they might tell you, okay, like you have to wake up early and you have to study this and do copyright and all these kind of things. But then what in the end really led him to that successful business? It's not just a combination of these few steps he has cherry picked, so to speak.
yeah, it's a good point, and I often I've pondered this too. For one thing or a few things, so he was supposedly grew up in a palace, right, and had all this sensual pleasure, and then he went to the other extreme. Well, then he did the deep concentration practices, right,
Yeah,
and left those two. I mean, integrate them, but that wouldn't take him all the way. When everybody at the time said that's it, eighth jhana, neither perception or non-perception. That's it. You can't go any higher. And he said, well, when I come out of that, can't do anything else. I mean, it's still back to where I was or whatever. That's the story goes. But then you go all the way to the other extreme, asceticism, right? Extreme kind of deprivation, and he said that's not necessary either. The thing is, though, like. He did all these things, right? He
yeah,
did all these, and he's telling people not to do them. And I don't, I'm not saying go out there and indulge all the and then do extreme things to find out for yourself. Maybe he does. We could learn a lot from what he says. But there's also the thing, the handful of leaves. He took a handful of leaves in the forest and said, okay, what's more abundant? The leaves in my hand are in the forest, and of course, the leaves in the forest are more abundant than his hands. He said the same way, even though my knowledge is the leaves in the forest, but I teach only this, suffering and the end of suffering. But the question still remains, how did he get to know all those leaves,
yeah,
And we can speculate on why he only taught suffering and the end of suffering, but it remains unseen all the other vast wisdom supposedly he had and why he didn't teach it, and I've got pretty good answers to that. But the matter of the fact is that no one else can do this for us, right? We can have friends, I think, and that I want to ask you about friends and relationships next, but we can have teachers as helpful feedback and guides, but they can't do all this stuff for us. They can't view the world for us. They can't respond to the world for us. It ultimately relies on how we do that.
yeah.
And yeah, so that's of the utmost importance. And yeah, the Buddha encouraged that too. He said, here's some things I figured out. You have to see and know this for yourself. If it's helpful, it's helpful. If it's not, it's not.
Right.
I can't do it for you.
Yeah, I think it's easy to put other people like that on a pedestal. You put them
Oh yeah.
above you. You think like they are somewhere where you're not, and then you constantly keep yourself above them. Well, in reality, you're your own authority, and all you need to do is check in your own experience.
Yeah, you
And
have to. That's
exactly, you
there's
have
no
to.
other really way. That's
Absolutely,
part of it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's easy to get lost in, like teachings, and this one did this and this one did that. But the truth is, everyone finds their own way, and there is no right or wrong way. If we say there is only one right way, I think that would be a fallacy of objective knowledge, where we would say, oh, there is the right way, and it's just waiting out there for us to see it. But that's not the case, you know.
Well, at least there are many skillful means out there for sure. You know, to limit oneself to only one thing. I mean, that's kind of dogma, right?
Yeah,
We have to explore and see and know this for ourselves. And some of the brilliant things or things that we come up with on our own and that we share with others that can help others. Because if we were just parroting everything all the time and falling in line with everybody else, I mean, how boring of a world that would be, how gray, hive mind, authoritarian, you know, lemming like reality would that be? It wouldn't be helpful. So totally agree with that.
yeah.
So now relationships, you know, I want to ask, what would you say about relationships just in general? I have no idea where to point you in this, maybe just how important they are, some do's and don'ts. I don't know why I'm asking you to comment on this, but in my experience, everything is relationship, right?
Yeah,
Even,
yeah,
but we have to ourselves, you know,
yeah,
and externally too.
yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think like even you could say that all spirituality is just about relationship. You know, in the end, it's all just about relationship. And yeah, relationships are beautiful. I mean, I think one of the most valuable things a human can do, like if they really want to see how much it can grow, is like live with another person. You know, live with another person for a while and then see how you do. I think that will teach you a lot about yourself. And so yeah, I think in relationships is they're a good they're a good gauge for what you might be rejecting in yourself, what you might not be accepting in yourself, what you might still be judging in yourself, where you they can show you like blind spots in yourself. And beyond that, of course, relationships are a source of great pleasure and joy. But I would also say that, you know, I think there is like a little bit conditioning in society where it says like if you're not constantly out and about and wanting to meet people and make new friends, something's wrong with you. People ask you, are you depressed? Are you okay? But but because I noticed it in myself, like I had long times where I would just want to hermit for myself and not meet people, and I was completely satisfied and happy with that. But from the outside, people would often think, "Hey, something's not right." But I think it's important that you listen to yourself. And if you don't have a strong desire to go out and socialize, that's okay. If you do want to socialize, awesome, do it. And you know, if it varies, also great. Like I don't think there is specific rules with how we and when and how much we should engage with each other, but kind of allowing our relationships to be I don't know, like an authentic reflection of how we feel about it, how we want to go about our lives.
That's beautiful too, and that takes so much pressure off because I know those times when I was
Absolutely.
going through rough patches, and more introverted, and people throw around the term introverted like it's some kind of condition or something, you know, it's
Like
like,
a
oh,
disease, huh?
he's introverted. Yeah, I mean, it's like what? And so the introvert, it recharges on their own, you know, and what I found. Become more mesiovert or ambivert. So these times when I just really enjoy solitude and being in my own energy and my own surroundings and peace. And even we have words like, you know, isolation or, you know, yeah, but there's something about solitude, you know, just the difference in the word, right? Solitude versus isolation, or this renouncing. There's certain things in the world I find are helpful to renounce, you know, that have a renunciate on certain things, other things to engage in, you know, if it's going to lead to my long-term welfare and happiness, well then, yeah, enter and abide in it. But if it's not, then it makes time to withdraw from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And this notion you say of letting it be an expression, or not trying to be inauthentic with it. Like if you don't, you know, if you don't feel it's going to be good for you, and now I get it when some people, they can be challenged, you know, by not ever wanting to leave their comfort zones, but that's not what we're talking about here, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think a good keyword here is try, you know. if you try too
Yeah.
much, you usually get away from where you really are or who you really are, what feels right to you. And also with the renunciation, I think renunciation often has this kind of like go away kind of feeling. But it can be a very, a very like loving, like, hey, okay, I see this is not serving me right now. Like, thank you, but no thank you, in a way. And something else I wanted to say.
Yeah. Yeah,
Anyway,
the no, yeah, that's it real I think that's yeah, it gets a bad rap sometimes. But we did see like a really interesting reversal during the lockdowns of going from, people that always stayed alone by themselves to look really weird to the exact opposite where, now if you're wanting to go out and be around people, well, you were the dangerous one, the weird one, and what people thought about hypochondriac beforehand. Now everybody's like putting stuff on their hands and being very scared of germs and things. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. If some aliens would have landed during that time period and saw everybody doing what they do, I wonder if they thought that we were, bunch of hypochondriacs or something without the context of what was going on. But,
yeah.
but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I think the positive is because I think solitude is beneficial to everyone at least at some point. I understand that some people don't desire solitude as much as others, and I would never say like, hey, there's this one thing and it works for everyone all the time. But if you don't have at least some time where you reduce the noise and just get away from everything that's being constantly poured into you, all the information on all the opinions of others, then you'll have trouble to see what's really with you, what is really there with you.
Yeah, it's absolutely necessary. Most people are kind of, it seems like they're a amalgamation of, the ones they've been around, and even once they've looked at their conditioning and deprogrammed a lot of things and unlearned a lot of things, then we're still kind of reflections of those that we spend the most time with. But if people haven't even done that and looked at and been with themselves and turned off all the external inputs, it's kind of ironic to say on a podcast, right? But yeah,
Well,
but it really is to power off and shut down, because yeah, you really be surprised. I mean, some people get really freaked out when they sit in silence and see just how absolutely out of control their mind and heart is. Yeah. Hey, so with the literature though, in my 20s, I was really into postmodern American stuff, and I think we can start transitioning here to wrapping up. Have you, what kind, and we could do name dropping now. So if you want, like I was reading David Foster Wallace,
dude, I
like
was
Infinite
just,
Jest.
yeah, I was just about to say, if you would have asked me what I like, I would have said that one. Yeah, that's a
Said
trip.
that one, yeah. I spent, wow, that was, well, Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment. I mean, that was such a hugely, intensely psychological novel. And then the Infinite Jest, that guy too. I mean, just the brilliance of him. Like, I did just sit there with a dictionary
Yeah, it's
sometimes on
crazy.
one page and have to look up and look up all these words. And he had this goal of learning all these words a day. It's just really profound writer. And but then on the other hand, some of the postmodern stuff, I feel like it's almost like intellectual wankery sometimes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
such a brilliant expression of something newish that's possible, and goes to such extreme depths of creativity and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I wonder about, and Gravity's Rainbow. I spent a lot of time reading that one too.
Oh,
And
that
somebody
one's
had
actually on
one.
my reading list.
Is it? You have to go in and see the. Someone did an illustration for every single page of that novel. So
Okay,
look that one up too. Somebody
will
spent a
do.
lot of time doing that. Sometimes it's just a quick drawing or whatever. Sometimes it's more elaborate, but I'm pretty sure they're still available online. But I can't even imagine it's hard enough just for me to get through every single page. But it's a joy in a way. But it challenged me to read these novels, and it was a source of expansion and pleasure, but also, I mean, David Foster Wallace, he seemed like he was really, really in the depths of something. I don't know. I don't know how to put it because my words don't do it justice. But yeah, it was quite a journey to go through that book.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think especially what he does is so different to what I've seen before with like sentences stretching across pages and pages, and then you have these long ass footnotes.
Footnotes, yeah.
I actually have the Kindle version, so I don't need. I can just if I don't know a word, I
Uh,
just tap on it, or like I can open the footnote immediately, which was quite handy. Um, and yeah, like the amount of characters, and every character is super interesting and has their own story. It's really crazy. It's really something. Um, but I also like, and I think this came with writing myself. Is like at some point, it's not just about what you say, but how you say it. Like the sentences you build, and like the rhythm to it, and some things I wouldn't have noticed before. Like suddenly there's like really a like I know this feels right. This sentence feels right. You know, it doesn't matter what it says; it just feels right. And I think that's really what, at least for me, that what makes good writing. Where I feel like it just it doesn't miss a beat, so to speak. It's like yeah, it's like music in
exactly.
a way.
And how it lands with you is definitely gonna be how it more than likely will land with your audience. You know, it seems that way, and it's interesting. Your style is a little bit concise, but in such a brilliant kind of punchy way, and then it will kind of throw some curves in there that I like too, and
Appreciate it.
the images you bring about too, I really find helpful, and do you do the little illustrations too?
Yeah, yeah, I
The
do.
stick figure
Yeah, I
illustrations. That's
do.
so cool. That's a good cool style.
Yeah,
All
thanks.
right, cool. Well, why don't you tell folks where they can reach you and kind of what you have in the works, what you have coming up, and anything else you want to plug, and then
Sure.
take people out on what you want to leave them with.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on my website. It's mindful.com, which is like mindful, but with an additional LED at the end. There you can find all my writing, some of my art. You can contact me there. I do offer coaching as well there, and like free calls as well if you want to talk with me. Um, I have two books you can buy there. Um, I also started writing on Substack recently, so for anyone who's interested, I have nothing like specific in the works or something. I've been maybe thinking about writing a little bit more fiction. Actually, I've been writing a little bit more fiction, but I feel like it's a whole different like beast than nonfiction. Um, yeah, what else? I think that's pretty much it. If anyone wants to talk, they can just shoot me an email. They can reach out to me.
Cool. All right. May all beings everywhere find their most optimal, ideal creativity and best way of being in this world. Thanks for joining me again.
Thank you, Josh.